So Swingers is a weird movie. This is a movie that it seems like a lot of people know about, but not a lot of people have actually watched. And after watching it, I kind of understand why it's so famous and so popular and why it has such a wide cult following. It's very reminiscent of movies like Dazed and Confused from Richard Linklater, or American Graffiti from George Lucas, or another Richard Linklater, Everybody Wants Some. It's very reminiscent of these kind of hangout movies, these slice of life, let's watch these group of friends do their thing. It is pretty much that, but the interesting thing about Swingers is that it seems to have a much more widely accepted reputation than these other movies do. American Graffiti is a movie from George Lucas that basically nobody knows about or talks about, and Dazed and Confused, while it has a following, isn't really brought up all that much anymore, and Everybody Wants Some came out a few years ago and basically no one cared. And so it is strange that this movie, Swingers, of all of these hangout movies, seems to have such a wide cult following. But after watching it, it does kind of make sense, because pretty much everyone involved with this movie is ultra famous now. I mean, Doug Liman directed this movie, who is now directing like American Made with Tom Cruise, or Edge of Tomorrow, and huge blockbuster tentpole movies like this. And the writer of this movie was Jon Faverou, who also stars in the movie, who is now working on gigantic Disney movies like The Jungle Book, or Iron Man, or a number of other movies similar to this. And then it also stars Vince Vaughn and Ron Livingston, and a whole bunch of different actors that are really famous, but not before Swingers. Swingers was the jumping off point for all of these different actors and directors and writers. Like, this is the movie that started so many careers.
You know, you got these claws and you're staring at these claws, man. And you're thinking to yourself, with these claws, you're thinking, man, how am I supposed to kill this bunny?
And you're
how am I
poking
supposed
at it,
to kill
man. You're
this bunny?
poking at
Yeah,
it.
you're not hurting it. You're just kind of gently batting the bunny around. You know what I mean? And the bunny's scared, Mike. The bunny's scared of you.
Even, apparently, Vince Vaughn was cast in Jurassic Park 2 because Steven Spielberg saw a scene from this movie. So that is sort of the most interesting part of this movie to me. All the stuff involved in the behind the scenes, of it getting funded, of it getting released, of the reception, all of that stuff honestly is way more interesting than the actual movie. I mean, apparently to get funding for this movie, Vince Vaughn and Jon Faverou and Ron Livingston, who are apparently really good friends in real life, did a stage play version of the movie to drum up buzz and get funding for the actual movie. And the director, Doug Liman, couldn't afford a great camera, so he got like a 35mm documentary style film camera and had to wrap jackets around it because it was so loud. So this movie's production is so much more interesting to me than the actual movie.
It wasn't until Doug Liman, the director, came with, he had an investor he had worked with.
This is Arthur Liman's son,
Yes,
and Arthur Liman's
yeah.
a very famous attorney.
Yeah, and now Doug is a very famous director. You know what I mean? Which
And
is
what
nice.
did he bring to it?
He decided to just shoot it in a way that you don't normally shoot a film. Shoot it like a student film. Use a small camera. Don't use a big crew. Don't use a lot of lights.
Yeah.
Don't do it in the way that you're, you know, almost like Hollywood Shuffle, where they just did it, they did what they had to do to get the film in the can.
But watching the movie itself, I do enjoy it, but it isn't all that interesting. I understand that it is cool to watch a movie where so many people jumped out of and became huge stars. It's interesting to see their starting position, but it doesn't feel like that is why this is a cult movie. It feels like this is a cult movie because of the movie itself. And honestly, I don't quite understand why. I mean, you can have all of these other hangout movies, American Graffiti and Dazed and Confused I've already mentioned, and they're almost identical to what this movie is trying to do. American Graffiti is essentially the exact same movie as this. It's just one takes place over a long period of time in Swingers, and one is one night in American Graffiti, but it is the same movie, where a bunch of guys go out on the town and pick up girls. It is literally the same movie. It's just, I think what makes this movie so popular is the writing from Jon Faverou. The script is really fun. It's a really entertaining movie for the most part. I think the characters and the filmmaking and the cinematography, the directing, the lighting, the performances even, all that stuff isn't all that good. Like, the filmmaking, like I said, they had to use a kind of a crappy camera that they wrapped up in jackets, and so the movie doesn't look that good. There's a lot of shots that are just straight up out of focus. There's sometimes when you can see the cameraman's shadow on walls. So the technical stuff here really isn't that good. There's even a really bad green screen scene in this.
Baby, look at me. Look at me. Your money, and you know what else? You're a big winner tonight. I want to leave. You're a big winner. I'm going to ask you a simple question. I want you to listen to me. Who's the big winner here tonight at the casino? Huh? Mikey, that's who. Mikey's the big winner. Mikey wins.
What makes this really entertaining is all the quotable lines it has and the fun performances from Vince Vaughn, Jon Faverou, the whole cast. They're so obviously friends in real life, and that charisma, that connection, that chemistry that they have in real life, it translates through the screen really, really well. You really can see the attachment that all these friends have to each other, and that is very infectious. And that is the biggest thing that I liked about this movie, and really the only thing that stood out for me, is just how much chemistry this cast has together.
Hold on. Hey, Mikey. Mikey, is he cute?
Is he brown?
If he'd like to come in and join us for a cocktail, Michael. Michael,
brown
if he's
man?
polite, if he's polite, have him come in. Michael, if he's polite, let him in. Is he clean?
But unfortunately, that's it. This movie is so simple. It's so simplistic. It's so surface level that there really isn't all that much going on. And that's honestly my biggest gripes with it, is that it isn't rewatchable for me. It's a good hangout movie, sure. You can put it on with some friends and probably have a good time saying, hey, that's this guy of the group, that's this guy of the group. It is fun. It's just not that great. It's not that rewatchable. I can't see myself watching this ever. The characters aren't all that full-bodied. They're pretty, standard characters. You got Jon Faverou, who is just coming out of a relationship. He's kind of the sensitive guy of the group. You got Vince Vaughn, who is the lady killer of the group, kind of a scummy douchebag kind of guy. All the characters are just sort of archetypes, and the filmmaking isn't that interesting. It doesn't have a lot to say. There's no real themes or messages that are in the movie. It's just a simple hangout movie. When I turn it off, I just don't really think about it that much. I think, oh, this is a funny line, and that's really the only things I take from it, is just some of the funny dialogue and humor it has. It has some good humor, it has some good dialogue, and some good writing, but it's just one of those movies that is fun while you're watching it, and then the second you turn it off, you kind of forget all about it. So, I don't know. I didn't really care for it. I didn't really care for this movie, and I really can't see myself watching it ever again. So, eh.